Madam Deputy Speaker, given that the opposition amendment has been accepted, I'm not going to stand here and outline my disgust at what has happened with regard to the historic grooming scandal.
The British people want answers. With these words, Rupert Lowe ignited a firestorm in Parliament. The Reform UK MPs' demands for action on grooming gangs left Labour MPs squirming in their seats.
The British people want answers. So I'm going to ask questions of the Labour Party and several of them. Will the government commit to urgently deporting all guilty foreign nationals involved?
Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now back to the video. From pausing Pakistani visas to creating a whistleblower hotline,
including family members who were aware of the crimes and therefore complicit, wives, sisters, mothers, cousins, if they knew and said nothing, these individuals are just as guilty as the rapists themselves.
Lowe's proposals are as controversial as they are sweeping. But as victims continue to encounter their rapists on the streets, is it time for such drastic measures? Labour's refusal to launch a new national inquiry into grooming gangs has sent shockwaves through the British public. It's a decision that's left many scratching their heads and wondering what's really going on behind closed doors. The Labour government's long-standing reluctance to tackle this issue head-on is nothing new. But now, with mounting pressure from victims, families, and Reform UK MPs, their continued silence is becoming deafening.
Will the government commit to stripping citizenship from dual nationals implicated and deport them as well? Race or religion must protect nobody.
It's as if they're desperately trying to sweep a ticking time bomb under the rug, hoping it won't explode in their faces. But here's the kicker. Their reasons for rejecting the inquiry are about as convincing as a politician's promise on election night. Critics argue that Labour is dodging accountability and transparency faster than a cat avoiding a bath. It's almost as if they're afraid of what might come to light if they start digging too deep. Let's talk numbers for a moment, shall we? The scale of the grooming gang problem across the UK is nothing short of staggering. Reports suggest that the number of victims could be in the millions. Let that sink in for a moment. Millions. And yet, there's no official tally of the overall number of rapes. It's like trying to count grains of sand on a beach, except this beach is a nightmare for countless young lives. So, what's really behind Labour's resistance? Experts have a theory, and it's not pretty. They suggest that Labour's reluctance to pursue this issue aggressively might stem from fears of political backlash and accusations of racism. Given the ethnic backgrounds of many perpetrators, it seems the party is tiptoeing around a political minefield, desperately trying not to set off any explosions. But here's the thing. While they're busy playing political chess, real people are suffering. Real lives are being destroyed, and the public's patience is wearing thinner than the excuses being offered up by those in power. When Rupert Lowe, the newly elected Reform UK MP, stormed into Parliament with his damning facts about grooming gangs, he wasn't just ruffling feathers, he was dropping a truth bomb right in the middle of the establishment's cosy little tea party. His call for a new national inquiry wasn't just a request, it was a challenge. A gauntlet thrown down at the feet of a government that seems more concerned with saving face than saving lives. Just when MPs thought they'd weathered the storm, Rupert Lowe dropped another bombshell. This time, he took aim at a target few dared to touch: visa policies and foreign aid. Lowe's proposal was as audacious as it was controversial, a complete pause on all Pakistani visas and foreign aid until the Pakistani government agreed to accept deported citizens involved in grooming gang crimes in the UK. The reasoning behind this drastic move? Statistics showing a significant proportion of grooming gang perpetrators in the UK have Pakistani heritage. It's a fact that's been whispered in corridors of power but rarely addressed head-on. Lowe, it seems, had no intention of tiptoeing around the issue. Race or religion must protect nobody, Lowe declared, his words cutting through the air like a knife. It was a statement that would make headlines, ignite debates, and potentially redefine UK-Pakistan relations. But at what cost? Critics were quick to cry racism, arguing that targeting Pakistani nationals could unfairly stigmatize an entire community. It's the kind of accusation that can end political careers faster than you can say, Twitter storm. Yet Lowe seemed unfazed, pressing on with his demands for action. The political tightrope Lowe was walking became even more precarious when you consider the potential fallout. Experts warn that implementing visa restrictions could strain diplomatic relations between the UK and Pakistan. We're talking about impacts on trade, cooperation on various issues, and let's not forget, the UK has historically provided substantial foreign aid to Pakistan. It's a delicate balance of power, influence, and cold, hard cash. But here's where it gets really interesting. The UK's foreign aid to Pakistan has long been a point of contention. Some argue it's crucial for development and maintaining good relations. Others see it as throwing good money after bad. Lowe's proposal brings this debate into sharp focus. Is it time to use that financial leverage to demand action on deportations? The implementation of such a drastic move would be a logistical and diplomatic nightmare. Imagine the scenes at airports, the backlog of visa applications, the international headlines. It's the kind of policy that could make or break a government. So why did Lowe call for this pause on Pakistani visas and foreign aid? It's a classic case of high-risk, high-reward politics. If successful, it could force action on an issue that's been swept under the rug for far too long. If it backfires, well, Lowe might find himself relegated to the political wilderness. Rupert Lowe's parliamentary demands have ignited a firestorm of public discourse on grooming gangs, forcing the nation to confront a long-buried scandal. The victims and their families, who have suffered in silence for years, are finally seeing their plight thrust into the spotlight. As one victim's family poignantly stated, the whole United Kingdom is now demanding justice for all those children who have been the victims of the grooming gangs that have been operating in the United Kingdom for decades. But will this sudden surge of attention translate into meaningful action? The UK has seen its fair share of political earthquakes that ultimately amounted to little more than tremors. The Labour government's reluctance to launch a new inquiry raises questions about their commitment to addressing this crisis. Are they truly prepared to face the uncomfortable truths that such an investigation might uncover? The eyes of the victims are now fixed on Parliament, their hope tinged with justified skepticism. They've heard empty promises before. This time, they're demanding more than just words. The question remains, will the political establishment finally muster the courage to confront this issue head-on, or will they once again retreat into the comfort of inaction?